Bizarre Brain Comics. Hello, my comic book friends, and welcome to Bizarre Brain Comics. I'm Gary, your host. And this is where I like to take a look at some older comics, talk a little bit about the characters and creators, and examine the stories and the art. But this time, I want to take a look at this book, which is a history book. It's a more or less academic look at the history of comics with an X. Comics, The Underground Revolution by Dez Skinn, with a foreword by Dennis Kitchen. And this book is from 2004. Oh, and it's a good-sized, thick piece, even though it's not as tall as a regular comic book. Trade paperback, and it's printed on very heavy, good quality paper, which makes it a heavy book. you could knock somebody out with this thing, and and it is trade paperback. Now, Comics, The Underground Revolution by Dez Skinn, 2004. Now, Dez Skinn was born in 1951. He's a British author of books on comics and of comics and magazine editor. Oh, I said that wrong. He's a comic and magazine editor and writer. Former head of the Marvel Comics operations in England, with Marvel UK, in the late 70s. After I said that wrong again. It was in the late 70s that he was the head of Marvel UK. And after that, he started Warrior magazine, which featured people like Alan Moore. He was called the British Stan Lee, and one of British comics' most influential persons. And there were charges of plagiarism regarding his book, Comics, Underground Revolution, this very book. So there are claims of plagiarism for this book. It's still an interesting book, but still. The author, Patrick Rosencrantz, as well as Trina Robbins, well, she had a separate charge. Rosencrantz alleged Skinn borrowed, in quotes, from his own book, Rebel Vision's Underground Comix Revolution from 1963 to 1975, and said he and there's nothing wrong with using another book as a resource, but for plagiarism he had to almost copy stuff word for word from it, which is possible. I don't know, because I'm not familiar with the other book. And he also used the very similarity of the name as part of that. But Skinn has claimed that that he did not choose the title of the book. That was done by the publisher. And then Trina Robbins has also had claims against him. Now, I wanted to say this. I just recently did covered a Trina Robbins comic book, and I've talked about her many times before. And at the time of this recording, she just passed away yesterday. So that's very sad. But she was 85 years old. And of course, I never knew her. I've only read some of the stuff she's written, besides comics, and brief snippets of interviews with her from various documentaries. Most particularly the 90s Crumb documentary, but some others as well. And it's and I think that it's very unfortunate. We have lost a great talent and influence in comics. Now, Trina, she wrote a chapter for this book but received no credit for it, which is which was her complaint. However, I don't pretend to know the ins and outs or anything. Skinn claimed that was part of the contract. She was not the only ghostwriter who worked on parts of this book. And none of the ghostwriters, I mean, that's the whole purpose of a ghostwriter. You don't get credit. You get paid, you do the work, and you don't get the credit. But so I don't even pretend to understand it. That's just the accusation and the complaint that I heard about. So and so far I think Skinn did enough editing when he went through it to make the writing seem consistent. So this is a very interesting book. I have several different books from different periods about the history of comics. Like I have one of Trina Robbins' books about women cartoonists. I have a book about Western comics. I have the other book of just titled Comics, which is from the 70s, and various other things like that. And I am interested in, I love the medium, and I'm interested in the history of the medium. It's from both mainstream and underground. So I was just going to take a short look into the contents of this book, and you can see on the cover illustration. Now this is a collage of images from various underground comics, and I think this was it was either done by one specific artist who did a great job at copying the styles of these various artists, or it was and what is more likely, it was image was made probably on a computer pulling these various images from the various creators and doing a good job of smashing them all together. Okay. Comics, the Underground Revolution, and it has, let's see, because it starts off with basically what I see at Zap Comics Zero. I just recently showed some of the zaps. The introduction, just roughly about Underground Comics and where they came from. That's basically where it starts. The types of stuff that the underground comics creators drew their inspiration from. Then the heroes, just talking about, woo, that's something I didn't want to show. Of course, Crumb. It starts with Crumb, even though there were some books, including by people like Vaughn Baudet, who predated it. They weren't. They were basically self-published, but not what's considered self-published and small press underground. And of course, Crumb's Zap Comics is generally considered the Zap #1 is considered the very first underground comics. The others were kind of proto-underground. I wanted to highlight here this great, looks like a watercolor illustration of Gilbert Shelton of his Wonder Warthog. Oh, no, this is by Tony Bell of Shelton's Wonder Warthog. And Grateful Dead comics, and also talks about the where underground comics went, basically. Subvert Comics, Spain Rodriguez. Oh, he's probably my second favorite underground cartoonist. And all kinds of things. Can't get enough. Then it just talks about just the sex in the Underground Comix, which was very, I have to be careful here. And it's, as you can see, it's just chock full of great, oh, don't want to show that one, illustrations from these comics. Whoop, don't want to show that one. That one's probably okay. Close enough. No. And stuff like that, where it went, can't get enough. Then the emphasis that a lot of them had on, of course, Underground Comix were always primarily, because, well, it's counterculture, primarily about sex and drugs. And then some of the political stuff, and it gets into some political stuff. And then beyond the page, other places that where the Underground Comix had an influence, like rock posters, because some of the underground cartoonists did poster designs and album cover designs. And one of the most notably, of course, would be, oh, I hate it when that happens. Grateful Dead, and stuff like the album cover for Meatloaf's "Bat Out of Hell," for example, and stuff like that. Rolling Stones, yeah, that's what we're talking about, because that was Richard Corbin, who was an underground and later also a mainstream comic artist. Published and be damned, just about the publishing. And this is more about some of the political aspects here, and the difficulties in just getting stuff published and distributed. And Von Baudet, I haven't really talked about Von Baudet here. Of course, he wound up committing suicide when he was still young, but he had a big impact artistically and such of his with his work, which I have covered a little bit before. Some of the people, and this is the chapter that Trina Robbins wrote and had her complaint about women's comics, Girls on Top, and here's a picture. You can't see it very well, but here's a picture of young Trina. This, of course, obviously, because she was very big in underground comics and getting, women in them and stuff early on. So then, Girl Fight, which I had just recently covered of her. And I don't want to cover that. Yellow Dog, Dynamite Damsels, and Dyke Shorts. Stuff about Roberta Gregory. Wet Satin, that's Trina. And, of course, has Crumb there, but that's not about Crumb. It's about Aline Kaminsky, the late wife of Robert Crumb. Women's Comics. And you see stuff like here, how this is an anarchy in the UK. The British versions of Underground Comics, both things that were American in origin and reprinted in the UK, and UK's original stuff that I've never heard of. We don't see over here, unfortunately. Obscene issue, and how that went. Then, where have all the flower children gone? Now, after the days of the hippies and stuff, where some of these creators are now, ones that are still alive, and how the Underground Comics. Here's even talking about Roy Lichtenstein, shows the original panel that he used for his influence, and then the result. Now, he did change the stylization a little bit, but it's basically a copy. Same thing with that. And Children of the Revolution, how what was the Underground Comix have moved into becoming the alternative comics of the 80s and even today, and how they've blended into some of the more larger publishers publishing some of the stuff. It even has a little bit where it talks about how in the heyday of the underground publishing, how mainstream publishers tried to get in on the act with when Marvel had their short-lived Underground Comix black and white magazine, and I guess Warren Publishing, which I didn't know anything about, had done the same thing. And here's the thing about the Cartoon History of the Universe, which is which was done as an Underground Comix by what's his name? Larry Gonick. I couldn't remember his name. I love these books, and I think even though some of the stuff, a lot of the stuff in them is now outdated because they were done like 40 years ago, mostly. They should be required reading in high school history classes, and I think it's better. And that is just a brief overview and review of this book. Now I can't say anything about the background of the book itself, but I enjoy the book, and it is a good resource for history of the comics with an X medium. So then that's all I've got for you this time. And I hope you enjoyed this little look into this book and a trip down the lane of history for the Underground Comix. In Comics, The Underground Revolution by Dez Skinn. And thank you for joining me. Please like, share, and subscribe. And do leave a comment. Do you know anything more about Dez Skinn and this and this plagiarism accusation or anything like that? Let me know. And if you like the idea of this book, I'm sure it's available on Amazon, if nothing else. Let me know what you think in the comments below. And remember, comics are art.